Hi, good evening, everyone. Today, we are going to go ahead and dedicate some time to new trade theories. Now, there are two kind of new trade theories that we want to go ahead and study. The first one, बेटा उसको बोलते हैं external economies of scale. So, ये जो भी trade theories हैं, they are related to the external economies of scale. That is what my focus will be on today's lecture. But there is something else also, which is called as internal economies of scale. These are the two kind of trade theories which come under the new trade theory aspect. Okay. Now, first of all, let us try to understand what is an economies of scale. तो ये इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल बहुत सिमिलर है माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स के कॉन्सेप्ट के साथ, जिसमें हम इंक्रीजिंग रिटर्न्स की बात करते हैं, इन विच वी टॉक अबाउट इंक्रीजिंग रिटर्न्स. इंक्रीजिंग रिटर्न्स क्या कहते हैं? दैट एज वी इंक्रीज द प्रोडक्शन, देयर इज अ डिक्लाइन इन द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, राइट? दैट मीन्स दैट द फर्म बिकम्स मोर एफिशिएंट, एफिशिएंसी इंक्रीजेस. इसी चीज को हम इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल भी बोलते हैं. Now, what we are saying is that many industries, they are characterized by economies of scale, right? That means they are characterized by increasing returns. That means they are characterized with the fact that when you increase production, जब आप production को बढ़ाओगे, तो cost of production will fall and therefore efficiency will increase. Efficiency बढ़ जाएगी, right? Now, what we are seeing in new trade theory is that this is one reason why trade can take place. International trade क्यों हो रहा है new trade theory के according? It is taking place due to economies of scale. इस reason की वजह से ही international trade is happening, right? Now, this is the official definition of economies of scale, that doubling the input to an industry will more than double the industry's production. Ki if suppose if you double the labor and double the capital, and output will more than double. अगर ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है, output more than doubles, then it is the case of economies of scale also, or increasing returns to scale. In international economics or new trade theory, there are two type of economies of scale. दो तरीके के economies of scale की हम बात करते हैं. The first economies of scale, that is called as internal economies of scale, and the second economies of scale, that is called as external economies of scale. Let us see first what is internal economies of scale. एक एग्जाम्पल ले लेते हैं पहले. सो इंटरनल इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल, व्हाट इट इज गोइंग अहेड एंड सेइंग इज दैट इमेजिन दैट you have to produce 1,000 units of output, and अभी तक ये जो 1,000 units of output है, it was being produced by 10 firms. 10 firm मिलके ये 1,000 unit output के बना रहे थे. There were 10 firms which were producing 1,000 units of output. Now, what we have said is that suppose that there is reduction in the number of firms. There are only 5 firms left. Okay. You can also consider it to be the case कि assume कि पहले हमारे पास perfect competition था, which was a case of many firms. And now because there are less firms, it's like imperfect competition. So when we move from many firms to few firms, ये जो फ्यू फर्म्स हैं ये अभी भी ये 1000 यूनिट्स प्रोड्यूस कर रही हैं, राइट? सो ईच फर्म इज नाउ प्रोड्यूसिंग मोर आउटपुट. When there were 10 firms and they had to produce 1000 units of output, so अगर मैं divide करूं, it means each firm was producing 100 units. 10 firms थी and we were producing 1000 units of output. अब क्या हो रहा है कि there are only 5 firms in the market. तो यही same 1000 units प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए, to produce the same 1000 units, each firm will produce 200 units of output. So if each firm will produce more unit of output, अगर हर firm ज़्यादा output produce करेगा, it means that in a way it will become more efficient, right? Its cost of production will fall because of economies of scale. क्योंकि वो ज़्यादा production कर रहा है, its cost of production is falling. This concept, अगर ऐसा कुछ कहीं पे हो, this concept is called as internal economies of scale. So internal economies of scale basically says that there is a reduction in cost of production because there are less number of firms in the market. और क्योंकि मार्केट में कम फर्म्स हैं, because there are less number of firms in the market, therefore each firm will be producing more output. हर firm ज्यादा output produce करेगा. And if each firm will produce more output, they will become more efficient. वो ज्यादा efficient बन जाएंगे. Right? So this is a case usually, जो अभी we will go ahead and we will see also, that internal economies of scale is the case where you basically have imperfect competition. यहाँ पे usually आपको monopolistic competition या oligopoly, you will see imperfect competition existing here. ठीक है? Where large firms will have cost advantage over the small firms. तो कुछ large players होंगे and they will be having cost advantage. This is the first case. This is called as internal economies of scale. Now, let's look at the external economies of scale example. So what external economies of scale basically suggests is कि suppose फिर से assume करो कि अभी तक 10 firms हैं और ये 10 firms 1000 units of output produce कर रहे हैं. Now what we are going ahead and what we are doing is we are, so per firm कितना output हो गया? 1000 divided by 10. Each firm is producing 100 units of output. ठीक है? Now what we are doing is we are doubling the number of firms. ठीक है? So now what I have done is that instead of having these 10 firms in the industry, I have doubled it to 20 firms in the industry. I have increased the number of firms. And because I have increased the number of firms, तो क्या हुआ कि उस जगह पर wherever these firms were established, it is like creating a full-fledged industry. And because this industry has been created, क्योंकि पहले कम firms थे, अब ज्यादा firms हैं, और ज्यादा firms हैं तो एक पूरा industry बन गया, एक पूरा area बन गया है. So each firm is able to lower its cost of production. When this happens, this is called as external economies of scale. तो एक्सटर्नल इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल क्या है कि जब नंबर ऑफ फर्म्स बढ़ जाते हैं, कम नहीं हो रहे हैं, व्हेन नंबर ऑफ फर्म्स इंक्रीज, देन बिकॉज ऑफ दिस कॉस्ट ऑफ ईच फर्म इज रिड्यूसिंग, राइट? दे आर गेटिंग बेनिफिटेड. हाउ दे आर गेटिंग बेनिफिटेड, वी विल डिस्कस दिस इन डिटेल ऑल्सो. एक बार हम इसको डिटेल में भी डिस्कस करेंगे. But just understand the concept that when there are more number of firms, जब number of firms बढ़ जाते हैं, then cost of each firm, it falls, right? And when cost of each firm will fall, जब हर firm का cost कम हो जाएगा, that will be called as external economies of scale. So in a way, if you see, इस case में हम क्या करें? We are increasing the number of firms. And when we increase the number of firms in an industry, माने we are moving towards perfect competition. ज़्यादा firms है market में. So usually it will be noticed that in external economies of scale, we have an industry which consists of small firms and is towards perfectly competitive industry. So remember कि external economies of scale में we have perfectly competitive industry and internal economies of scale में we have imperfect competitive industry. Each firm production will remain the same, just that number of firms will, when we increase the number of firms, each firm is still producing its own output of 100 units, right? Okay. Now, this external economies of scale, this concept was given by Marshall first. सबसे पहले Alfred Marshall ने external economies of scale की बात की थी. And he said that there can be 3 reasons why external economies of scale can be beneficial. क्यों ऐसा होगा कि इन फर्म्स की कॉस्ट कम हो जाएगी जब नंबर ऑफ फर्म्स बढ़ जाएंगे? उसको उन्होंने एक वर्ड दिया. He called this as cluster of firms. So Marshall said that a cluster of firms is better than individual firm. माने अगर मैं 2 केसेस ले लूं, यहां पे सपोज मेरे को 1000 यूनिट्स ही प्रोड्यूस करना है, यहां पे भी लेट्स से मुझे 1000 ही प्रोड्यूस करना है, यहां पे आई हैव 1 फर्म, ठीक है, एंड यहां पे सपोज आई हैव 10 फर्म्स. सपोज लेट्स फिक्स द आउटपुट एट द सेम अमाउंट. Then Marshall said that this is a better situation. यहाँ पे cost will be less. Right? And he gave 3 reasons for it. 3 reasons उन्होंने mainly दिए. The first one he called that as specialized suppliers. What specialized supplier says is कि supposedly इस firm को जो भी ये लोग product produce कर रहे हैं उसके लिए कुछ एक special XYZ input चाहिए, which is a very specialized input. बहुत एक ऐसा input है जो बहुत easily नहीं मिलता है, right? Then to go ahead and to deliver it for one firm can be sometimes difficult. But if there are 10 firms, अगर एक पूरी industry established है, then that input will be more easily delivered to that location. So what he said is that suppose in an industry production requires specialized equipment. ऐसी कोई एक चीज चाहिए जो बहुत specialized है, it's very particular thing. If there is only one firm, अगर सिर्फ एक ही firm होगा, supplier of these equipments and services might not find it profitable to supply equipment to just this one firm. एक firm को देना कभी कभी profitable भी नहीं होगा, या उसके लिए इतना pain लेना will also be difficult. But if there are many firms, अगर पूरे cluster of firms हैं, market for these equipments will be large to support the specialized supplier. तो उस केस में हम easily यहाँ पे वो input को supply कर सकते हैं. And this is a typical example where in Silicon Valley you get the input semiconductor industry से related because it's a complete industry, right? And if you know in India also we have special economic zones, SEZs होते हैं. क्यों बनाए जाते हैं ये special economic zones? एक reason ये भी है that we can establish a complete industry, right? So that all producers are at one place and easy input is available. So that's the first reason given by Marshall. The second reason that he gave is called as labor pooling. Labor pooling के लिए he gave one example. So let's say that, let's take a case that there are 2 firms. Firm 1 location A पे है and firm 2 location B पे है. And these locations, they are very apart from each other. बहुत दूर दूर हैं locations, right? And it is not very easy for labor to travel. Labor easily travel नहीं कर सकता. Now, in this economy as a whole, suppose there are 300 labor supply. ठीक है? So what will happen? Let's say that in firms का एक season चलता है. There is a high demand season and there is a low demand season. ठीक है? Now what happens is that during the high demand season, these firms, they require 200 labor. and during low demand season they require 100 labor. ठीक है. Suppose location A और B में the labor is split, तो यहाँ पे 150 labor है out of the total 300 labor, और यहाँ पे भी 150 labor है. So what will happen during, suppose यहाँ पे high demand season चल रहा है और यहाँ पे low demand season चल रहा है इस region में. So high demand season में this firm one they require 200 labor, but इस लोकेशन पे सिर्फ 150 लेबर अवेलेबल है, ओनली 150 लेबर इज अवेलेबल, माने इट विल हैव शॉर्टेज ऑफ 50 लेबर, है ना. लोकेशन बी पे वी हैव लो डिमांड सीजन गोइंग ऑन, राइट. फर्म बी जो वट एवर दिस फर्म टू इज इट हैज लो डिमांड सीजन. सो यहाँ पे भी 150 लेबर इज देयर बट इट ओनली नीड्स 100 लेबर, तो माने it will have 50 labor unemployed, right? So there can be shortage or unemployment of labor, but suppose these two firms were at one location, ये एक साथ ही होते हैं, firm 1 firm 2, ठीक है. Then what would have happened that at that location हमें एक साथ 300 laborers मिल जाते. Firm 1 okay, it has high demand, so it can take 200 labor out of this 300 labor. Firm 2, it has low demand, so it can take 100 laborers and everyone can find employment. It means that हम कुछ extreme scenarios को avoid कर सकते हैं. How we can go ahead and how we can avoid those extreme scenarios? We can avoid those extreme scenarios by putting both the firms at one location. ठीक है? This is called as labor pooling. So what he suggests is that when firms are together, कभी कभी ऐसा हो सकता है कि जो शॉर्टेज या अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएट होती है, दैट शॉर्टेज और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट कैन बी अवॉइडेड. दैट्स द सेकंड रीजन व्हाई वी शुड हैव अ क्लस्टर ऑफ फर्म्स. रीजन नंबर 3 that he gave, that was basically called as knowledge spillover. Knowledge spillover क्या कहता है? That if these firms are together at one place, so there can be diffusion of knowledge. Diffusion of knowledge means कि whenever one firm is going ahead and doing anything, any kind of innovation, right? So the other firm can also understand, get the idea from that firm, learn from that firm. ठीक है? So there can be informal exchange of idea, innovation, etc., which might help the other firms also. And plus, because you continuously see your competitors, आप अपने competitors को बार बार देखते हो, तो इससे क्या होगा, you also learn more from your competitors कि वो ऐसा क्या कर रहे हैं, why they are able to sell more, why you're not able to sell more. All that also becomes better when there is a knowledge spillover. So these are the 3 reasons which were given by Keynes for external economies of scale या cluster of firms. ठीक है? All these 3 reasons are very, very